So hello everybody, welcome to my presentation about Sitecore XM Cloud and Vercel based multi-site solutions. We will uh, look deeper in different approach how we can actually set up our multi-site solutions. We will compare them, identify some pros and cons, and so that will be not so rocket science presentation. We will probably speak a lot about some simple things, but maybe it will be helpful for somebody in the future who will faced with the requirement to build a multi-site in a cloud-based platforms. So before I will start, let me say a few words about me. My name is Artsem Prashkovich, and I have more than 13 years of programming experience, primarily in the backend, in the .NET side, but still have some front-end experience. Since April 2012, I work for Brimit and currently took a position of solution architect. I have more than 12 years of experience in Sitecore and was awarded at Sitecore Technology MVP 8 times in a row, if I'm not wrong. For the last years, I fell in love with yachting, obtained some different licenses, a lot of licenses, and now for the last years, I organize some weekly trips with my family friends on the yachts in catamarans in different locations like Croatia, Spain, Italy, etc. Okay, it is what about my hobby. And now let's switch to the presentation itself. I'm pretty sure that all of us already heard about the XM Cloud, and maybe some of you already got some experience with that. But anyway, let me just identify what XM Cloud is. And basically, the XM Cloud is a cloud version of Sitecore Experience Manager called an XM, offering a cloud-based platform for content management. It allows organizations to create, manage, and deploy digital content with the flexibility of the cloud technology. And talking about some advantages of the XM Cloud, first of all, it is cloud-based in the cloud environment, which fully managed by owner of the platform, and XM Cloud eliminates the need of the companies to handle hosting, updates, infrastructure setup, and maintenance. So you don't need to think about it. You only need to think about the maintenance of your application, but not on the infrastructure itself. Being a cloud-based platform, it provides and ensure the high availability and scalability. So again, it happens automatically. You don't need to think about it. XM Cloud provides a list of tools by default. For example, XM Cloud Deploy, which help us to deploy the environment with some CLI support or with the interface provided by XM Cloud, and such another tools. Even Pages is supported by default. And last thing, but not least, it is the headless CMS, which allows integration with various interfaces and channels through the APIs. And again, headless means that it does not provide the rendering opportunity by default, and we need to run our front-end app somewhere and host it somewhere. And there is a different various of different options how we can do that. We can deploy our application and host our application somewhere in the modern platforms like Netlify or Vercel, or we even can host it on some on-prem server running Node.js server and maintain and support it ourselves. But in this presentation, we will talking about the Vercel, and let me identify what is it. And again, it is also a cloud-based platform that enables developers to deploy, manage, and scale web application easily. It is a popular hosting for Next.js applications, and it is actually because the company behind the Vercel is also creator of the Next.js technology. And however, Vercel supports a wide range of front-end frameworks and static site generators, making it like a universal platform for various web projects. Talking about some opportunities of the Vercel, it provides the serverless functions capabilities, allowing developers to run backend code without managing the separate server. Saying backend, I mean that it is not like a regular backend as we usually think about. It is not like .NET backend. This is the backend of Next.js applications, which is usually used for handle some API requests from the client side. It is a global content delivery network. It uses a global content delivery network to ensure that website and applications are fast and responsive regardless of where the user is. And it is, as I said before, it is optimized for the Next.js based applications, but it also pretty fine work with React, Vue.js, and Angular, and so with any number of modern front-end frameworks. It is automatically scaling in the same way as it works with the XM Cloud, and it provides a real-time performance monitoring and analytics to help developers or even the business owner to understand how their site is operated and application perform. So now it is the time to switch to the diagrams that I prepare to compare different way to run multi-site solutions. And all of them will include some parts like XM Cloud from the left side, Vercel from the right. We will have Sitecore Experience Age, which is also part of XM Cloud setup and the XM Cloud environment, but I put it separately a bit and we'll explain. And on the first diagram, I placed probably regular view of multi-site solution. And we have a repository. Let's say we have some repository where we placed our code, and there is authoring, which I called the .NET based application, represented our XM Cloud extensions or customizations, or maybe some content resolvers, doesn't matter. So all stuff that are related to the XM Cloud or even to the Sitecore are placed in the authoring. So then we will have a different number of rendering apps. In that particular example, we have 3 web apps with the separate code base and 3 websites also we can call them as app apps running in Vercel. And we have 3 editing hosts under the XM Cloud. So this is the key points on the diagram. And now let's focus on the deployments, for example. So when we have 3 editing hosts running in our XM Cloud, we need to deploy them all together based on the code in our repository. There is no option, at least as at the time that I was working with the XM Cloud. It was some time ago, but I don't think anything changed. So we cannot deploy editing hosts separately. So even separately from the authoring part, it is all stuff are in the same config where we put all parties of the deployment, like editing host, like authoring, and one command will perform the deployment to all this stuff together in the same time. Which makes it a bit longer as for me, and yeah, it just make it longer. So probably no other disadvantages at that point. And once we have a separate repository for each applications, we have to deploy them. We can deploy them separately to the Vercel, and each of them have own CI/CD process because of the different folders. Doesn't matter folders or even different repositories. Anyway, they all are different. Then in the Vercel side, we have three apps running based on our code and three different domains. And let's say we have alpha, beta, gamma websites, and all of them running in the same Vercel. And to retrieve the content, we request Sitecore Experience H, which in XM Cloud architecture represent kind of web database as we usually think about when we're talking about the Sitecore, but it's not really the web database. It is a separate technology which index the content published from the Sitecore to the H and respond to JSON as a GraphQL endpoint. I also put some context ID here. Actually, each environment in XM Cloud has a pair of two context IDs, one called like live, second one called preview. Based on these IDs, we can retrieve live content, which is actually ready to be produced to the users, and we can reach the preview content. But I have a separate diagram to explain the context ID because for me it was kind of new things, but it was interesting to figure out how it works. On the next diagram, I prepare a bit different way to proceed the editing of our website. So different way to run our experience editor or pages. In that example, we use the apps running in Vercel as an external editing host for our Sitecore sites defined in our XM Cloud. Basically, each applications based on which are built based on Next.js GSS starter kit has the endpoint calling like API editing render, and this endpoint used by Sitecore to request from the app the markup prepared to be used by experience editor or pages. Each of the websites has own endpoint, and here I put it only for the Gamma website, but in real life we'll have those kind of arrows for each website coming to the corresponding app in Vercel. Once we read off editing hosts from the XM Cloud, our CI/CD process is simplified just to the one application one I don't know. Only our storing code need to be deployed to the XM Cloud. No, any other apps, front-end apps need to be deployed. One more important thing is that when you are going to use your Vercel apps as an external editing host, you have to enable the Redis cache to store the session, not really the session, to store the editing object that you are sending to the website, to the app. Because if you will not use Redis and the first click, it seems like work. But if you are going to, when you start working with the experience editor, it becomes like broken. So this is important thing, which is configuring pretty similar. And there is a guide from the Sitecore in the Sitecore documentation how to do that. But it is important and actually required thing to do when you are going to use these external editing hosts. Everything else is the same. We use the context ID live. We have three websites running in Vercel. We have three pipelines to deploy each up to the Vercel. Let's go further. And on this diagram, I represent the single app running in the Vercel, which use the single code base in our repo. And this is the good option for the solutions where we have a different number of websites, but they all use the same code and probably just different theme because they are different. They look different just because of different CSS, but the components and layouts are the same, just different different number of components or something like that I apply to the website. So then we can use one code base and one application running in the Vercel. And that in this particular example, we have to use site resolver or multi-site add-on from the Sitecore starter kit, which allow us to resolve the site name based on the host that request comes from. And how it works, when app is run on a very early stage of the run of the, even on the build time, application make a request to the Sitecore directly, even if it requires the age, to retrieve the list of sites with their host assigned to the app and store it in the configure zone. And based on this list, site resolver figure out which site we request based on the host, incoming host, and then send the site name to the request of the Sitecore experience age to retrieve the corresponding content. Multisite add-on is actually just a middleware that behind the request that retrieve the request and then rewrite the site and proxy it to the Sitecore age. We still need Redis. Then we have only one CD pipeline, CI/CD pipeline to deploy it to the Vercel, and one CI/CD pipeline to deploy our Sorin code to the XM Cloud. So in that case, we have less apps in Vercel, we have less repositories, and everything seems easy. But again, it depends the needs of the client, because sometimes we need to have different apps. Sometimes we can use one app for each website, for each one app with the same code base for each website, just configuring them in a Sitecore as the content. Even we have, okay, sorry, nope, not another slide. In the previous diagram, I haven't mentioned that even we have one editing host here, rendering host in the Vercel, we still can use it as external editing hosts, because each site will send different items, and that will be just perform the rendering and prepare the markup for the experience editor. One app will be responsible for the editing of the different websites. On the next diagram, I'm just showing, even we have one application running in Vercel, we have one editing, we have one code for rendering app. We still can use the editing hosts within the XM Cloud, but we will have to deploy it 3 times. I mean, deploy the same code 3 times each for the editing host per website. So in the config of the deployment, we will just point in the same application code, but different site names and settings applied for different editing hosts. That also works. Basically, I have not figured out which way is better to use external editing host or to use the editing host within the XM Cloud. From one side, we don't need to deploy anything to the Vercel, and there is no required connection between them. But from another side, we are deploying more stuff in the XM Cloud. It makes the deployment more make the deployment slowly, and we have to deploy more stuff in the XM Cloud. Actually, we usually, on all of our XM Cloud projects, we use the external editing hosts. So, and probably the last option in terms of the multi-sites is to have separate apps running in Vercel, even based on the same code from the repo. Probably it provides us more flexibility because we can deploy them separately. We have each our application running in Vercel has own pipeline, which we can use to deploy it in any time we want. For sure, we have to be careful because once all of them use the same code, and again, they are connected by API with the Sitecore, which also depends some content changes, or even not only content changes. It's more important to track the changes on the template sides, which can change kind of uh, API output, just changing the objects. So then when we deploy only one, it can become that it can bring everything else is unworking. So then we always need to charge if we can deploy one by one, or we have to redeploy all of them based on the changes that we made on the app code. But we utilized exactly the same, not exactly the same, the similar setup for our client, and basically it works fine for us. Even we have around 30 applications running in Vercel just based on the one rendering host. So we have the separate apps for different countries, for different regions, and all of them have the same code but running in separate apps. And on this diagram, I'm showing that even we have one code, we can separate the apps here and collect analytics, collect some logs, just associated just only one side, so not only, and we can track them better, or even we can proceed with some canary deployment when we deploy to the one region and see how the site operates and how the user behave, and when we make sure that it works good for one region, we can deploy to the rest. Then there's a lot of scenarios how we can use the different apps based on the one code. Okay. As I said before, I have prepared the diagram explaining the context ID introduced by Sitecore, which was introduced by Sitecore not so long time ago. And each environment in Sitecore has a pair of the keys or the context IDs, as I said, live and preview. And for example, when we request the content from the Sitecore age based on the context ID, the request comes to the age. And first of all, Sitecore age try to identify is the context ID is live or no. If it is live, it just respond the JSON content to our website as just from the storage. Where the storage include the published content from Sitecore. But if the context ID is not live, which means it probably preview. Again, it no always means that it's preview. It can be just even wrong context ID, and we will got like an error that it was not found or so. Otherwise, if it is preview, Sitecore age will play a role of the proxy, and our request finally will come to the GraphQL endpoint of our XM Cloud instance. Before Sitecore context was introduced, we in case of some preview, we had to make a request directly to the Sitecore to this H GraphQL endpoint, which even was called like preview endpoint. And then it means that we have to have direct connection between our application host. I don't know where, so it can be somewhere, so Vercel or even some on-premise, doesn't matter. So we have to direct connection between XM Cloud and our application, just in case we want to have this preview functionality. But with this context IDs is introduced, we always communicate with Sitecore age. So the XM Cloud even can be hide somewhere under the some network restrictions and so. So when we even it can be even not unavailable from outside. And we always communicate with a single point of communication. It was new for me. It was spend some time to figure out what is it and how to use, because yeah, in the documentation it clearly explain it why we need to live context ID and why we need to preview, but it was not explained how it works and how to use it actually. And first thing that I was trying to do is just put it as a query string to my in my playground and try to retrieve the content without the API key and just using the Sitecore context ID. And it was not working. It was always returning me some errors here. And then I started to play with different approach to pull this Sitecore context ID to the parameters, to the header, to the query string, and it was not working with the playground. And finally, I identified that even it will not work with the playground, and I tried to run it with the Postman, where I send the post request, not the get, and I choose the GraphQL as a body, put my request, and finally it became working for me. So then if you want to test it, so better way is to use Postman. So the next, we can find the context ID, preview and live in the details tab of our environment. In my case, this is the staging, doesn't matter. So each environment have these settings, and you can regenerate it if you need, actually. So now just let's compare it a bit with, and actually we will compare to have multiple apps running in Vercel with the option to have only single based application. And in case of the standalone application, we use the multi-site add-on to resolve it. So let's say we have 3 websites or more, and now we will compare which way is better to have multiple apps or standalone app. And from the build and deploy point of view, the multiple apps provide your ability to deploy sites in the parallel, which not so big pros, because when you have a single app, you also deploy all of them together. But again, having your environment running with multiple apps, you can deploy them separately and independently. So being careful again with the templates changes and renderings, but again, it is possible, and it provides us an ability to perform some canary deployments with some different regions, or even some A/B testing, having different functionality for the same site, so with different components. I don't know. So it is a bit marketing stuff. Again, if you have the standalone, you having the standalone, which means that you will build all your sites in the same time. And if it is the Next.js application, which means that you will generate pages for each of your website in the same time, and probably it can increase the time of the build. Again, as it can send in performing the build, again performing the site generation. Each page will send the request to the edge to retrieve the content, and you can reach the limit of the edge for the parallels build. Yeah, and in a standalone app, you cannot build your apps, your websites separately. They will always be deployed in the same time. So from the performance point of view, having multiple apps, or let's say have the application per website, you follow the native method for Next.js applications to be deployed, making use of all performance aspects of the Next.js and the host. Again, looking at the standalone, having that multi-site add-on middleware, you can kind of affect the performance a bit, because on every request, your application will be resolve the website based on the host and rewrite the site name to the request to go into the page. Based on my experience, it will not affect a lot, but it may depends how many requests you have, how many sites, and etc. etc. At least we can consider that it's possible making the decision. Also, maybe not so important, but when you have the multiple apps running in the Vercel, you have to implement your 44 and 500 errors page for each of your applications separately, comparing it with the standalone, where you can only have 144 and 404 and 500 errors common for each your website. So it's impossible to customize the 44 error for the particular website. And the last thing that I was mentioning, that when you have the multiple apps, you collect the analytics data, metrics, and logs for each app separately. And when you will even look at the interface of the analytics with logs, you will see the only logs and metrics associated with only one website. In case of the standalone, you will have all analytics, all logs in the same place, and you will kind of perform some filtering to identify the site-specific parameters that you want to track and see in some moment. Having it separately, so in that case, definitely easy to troubleshoot and analyze the performance and set up some permissions for the team to access some etc. sites, even from the Vercel point of view. So taking in account all these advantages and disadvantages, I would like to say that from the costs point of view, it is no matter if you deploy 50 apps or you deploy just only one. The Vercel measures the consumption of the traffic requests, how many traffic you upload or receive it is or send. All these metrics are calculated based on your account, not based on their application level. So it doesn't matter. It is just up to you, or just up to your clients and business needs to identify which approach will work better for you. One single app or multiple apps running in a rendering host. Not even it is not really necessary to run it in Vercel. So I think the approach will work for each of them. And finally, I will show the last diagram. It should be the demo, but I got an issue with my account, not so just a few hours before the demo, and only what I have to show is the diagram, unfortunately. And but again, so there is not really a lot of things to show as a demo, because more or less it is just architectural approach. But anyway, I was preparing kind of everything which was defined before: single app, 3 apps running separately, all the same based on the same code. Much more important thing that I was going to show is that we store our code in Azure DevOps. We don't utilize the automatic triggers from the GitHub. that kind of suggested to use in XM Cloud or even Vercel. So because we want to have under our control when and what we deploy. So which means that we have our CLI and CD pipelines running also in Azure DevOps and perform builds on actually pull request. Doesn't matter how we perform the builds, but we deploy the artifacts to the XM Cloud or to the Vercel just by our pipelines running in Azure DevOps. For the application level, we have an ability to deploy all the same. So this is like we configure the different stages, and one of the stages called like all, and we deploy all apps that defined in the Vercel at the same time, or we have an option to deploy each website separately. For the demo reason, I prepared the standalone step, but again, it will just deploy one standalone application. So on that point, I think I'm finished, and I'm open to any questions, and thank you for the attention.
I think I really like the way splitting those apps and then also having like one single code base. Did you really try this out, Artsem? Like how the performance or anything you can speak about?
Yes, for one of our clients, we have one single code base and 30 apps running in the Vercel. So no any issue in terms of the performance. Actually, it works fine even without any issues. As I said, the decision was made based on the ability to collect all analytics data separately for each website, because each application running in the Vercel in our case was represent a different market for the products. So that was different brands in different countries, and it was important to understand how it works and how it perform in the different countries actually. So then we decided to don't use this multi-site add-on, which even was recommended to use by Vercel even. I don't know why, but based on we make another decision and separate them, and it finally works. Okay.
Okay.